The UFC is all about fighting and beating your opponent, but we don't really get to hear about things behind the scenes all too often. If a beef between fighters is involved, then yes, we hear about it all the time, but when it comes to mental health and other things in the same realm, we don't get much information on it. So today we're discussing I Don't Want to Live Anymore, when Paige VanZant opened up about mental health struggles after fight loss. First up, when Paige VanZant opened up about mental health struggles after fight loss. A loss in the competitive sport like the UFC can mean a whole lot of different things for a fighter. It can really affect the fighter in many ways, from being unmotivated or being angry. However, one aspect that isn't often spoke about is the depression side of things. Recently, we heard from Paige VanZant that she went through a depressive episode and was thinking about suicide after a loss. In 2020, Paige VanZant actually left the UFC to fight under BKFC. However, things didn't go to plan for the fighter. Rather than starting her BKFC career off with a bang, she instead lost her debut fight and the one after that. She was also coming off a loss in the UFC just before she transferred to the BKFC. This means she had back-to-back losses. In a recent video, VanZant came out and spoke about her failures in the sport. She said that after her BKFC loss against Rachael Ostovich, she went back to the parking lot and cried. She said, "I said some things to my husband that are pretty terrible about, like, my mental state. I told him I didn't want to live anymore, that this wasn't for me anymore. Like, life wasn't for me anymore, so I was disappointed. It was hard. Everyone expects me to lose and everyone expects me to fail now. I don't know, I just feel like people have this specific perception of who I am, and especially online. It's crazy how much people can hate on a single person. I just don't get it," said VanZant. She then went on to advocate for speaking out about your mental health issues and about how important it is truly to not keep it all wrapped up inside. Mental health is no joke, and I need to start taking my mental health more seriously. VanZant has shown that even whilst speaking about your lowest points, you can create a message that will help many in their lives. What do you think about what VanZant did? Let us know down in the comment section below. And now, on to some other UFC news. Next up, Jake Paul explains why the McGregor-Masvidal is the fight to make. Jake Paul is constantly talking about who his next opponent is going to be and attacking many of the top fighters in both the UFC and the world of boxing. Recently, he's been focusing on the UFC as he really wants to make his debut sometime this year. He's been egging on Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal. Though both McGregor and Masvidal are legends in the scene, they aren't as good as they used to be and have clearly deteriorated in skill and form over the past few years. Jake is clearly taking this opportunity to hopefully say he defeated one of them. McGregor has had 2 back-to-back defeats against Dustin Poirier, and his recent injury during his latest fight against him has left the Irishman out of the game for a while now. Masvidal has a similar story as well. Both fighters aren't at the peak of their performance or their careers, and that's why Jake is calling them out. Whilst many want McGregor and Masvidal to fight one another, Jake clearly wants to fight either or both of them at some point. Jake Paul might be 5-0 right now, but he hasn't won a fight against a peak fighter. Everyone he has had a fight with is either past their prime or not a boxer at all. The UFC is a completely different world, and he would get absolutely destroyed if he isn't careful. Even though McGregor and Masvidal aren't in their prime, they are much better fighters than Paul in any sport. What do you think about Paul's call-outs? Should he fight one of them, or should they fight one another in the near future? Let us know down in the comments what you think down below. And now, UFC star branded as a moron for praising Russian leader Vladimir Putin. As we all know, something awful is going on in Ukraine right now. Everyone is trying their best to support Ukraine in times like these, and many influencers from many places around the world have been talking about it. However, there have been some people who are clearly uneducated on everything and have made some uncalled for comments. UFC star Paulo Costa has come out and praised Russian President Vladimir Putin, while also attacking other leaders of their respective countries. However, many other UFC fighters have come out and given backlash to Costa's comments on Putin, and rightfully so. show. Costa is a former UFC title challenger, and he has been talking about the recent war between Russia and Ukraine. He has come out and labeled the US and French presidents as weak leaders while praising Putin, even despite his most recent actions against Ukraine. Vladimir Putin is not a weak leader like Biden or Macron, Costa tweeted. He is an ex-military man who was once stabbed in the belly and survived. He is another level of world leader. You may hate it, but it's the truth. These comments have, of course, created outrage on Twitter from the UFC community and even sparked some comments from other fighters who once respected Costa. Former UFC heavyweight Brendan Schaub has come out and stated that many fighters need to keep their political opinions to themselves instead of boasting about them on social media. For some of these MMA guys, when they talk about politics, I wish you didn't. If you knew the horrible S clearly, just turn on the news, he said. The Schaub show, they're killing pregnant women, innocent children, murdering kids, bombing daycare centers, bombing hospitals. You don't know what the F you're talking about. You have no clue, dude. To tweet something like that, you've got to be a moron. You're a MFing moron. But again, these guys you want to talk about like you have any idea what you're talking about, co-signing Putin. What are your thoughts on Costa praising Putin and talking about his political opinions all over social media? Let us know down in the comments section below. And finally, we have Dana White, Jake Paul trade shots about potential Conor McGregor fight at 175 pounds. Our final story comes from Dana White and Jake Paul's ongoing beef with one another. Jake Paul has been making comments about the UFC for months now, and we always seem to get some sort of response from Dana White not long after Paul makes his statements. First, it was the pay of the fighters, and now it has moved on to Paul advocating for another Conor McGregor fight against either himself or Masvidal. Paul has really been wanting this fight between him and McGregor as he believes that he can destroy McGregor in a sport he hasn't even fought professionally in yet. During a recent interview on Logan Paul's podcast, Impulsive, Dana White was asked point blank about the possibility of this fight between McGregor and Jake Paul. Well, he shouldn't even be fighting Conor McGregor, White said. These guys are effing huge. Logan is huge. His brother Jake is huge. What's your brother, 6'1", 210 pounds? Conor McGregor is 145, 155 pounds. There are weight classes for a reason. Do you think Jake could make 170? White continued, asking Logan Paul directly. I don't think so, Logan Paul replied. Clearly, even his own brother doesn't believe that Jake Paul could or even should take this fight. But that's exactly what Jake wants. He's a man that thrives on people not believing in him. That's why he works as hard as he does. Even if you don't like the guy, you can't deny that his work ethic is off the charts. He works so hard as he wants to prove to everyone around him that he actually can do these things that they said he couldn't. Paul has been a major thorn in Dana White's side over these past few months, and finally letting Paul fight for the UFC might be the best thing to squash it all. Jake says he is ready to get training for a UFC fight and that he has been learning the sport instead of focusing on boxing these past few months. Clearly, Jake Paul wants to level up his fighting career and move over to the UFC now that he's done with boxing. What do you think? Let us know down below. And that's the end of today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed this latest video. If you did, would you please let us know down in the comment section below? It would be very helpful. Make sure to like the video, comment down below, and of course, subscribe to the channel with the notification bell rung. Thank you for watching today's video. Bye.